Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway. Today I'm going to be experimenting with how to save a lot of money repairing Bachmann locomotives and potentially also how to make them run even better. When Hornby motors fail, it's not a complete disaster, and that's because Hornby and most of their locomotives use standard size motors which have been available to purchase incredibly cheaply on eBay in the past. And if you're interested in how I got on with that, you can check out the video up there. Basically, the cheap eBay motors were fantastic and they ran every bit as well as the original, much more expensive Hornby ones did. But this is a Bachmann motor, and Bachmann seem to have been a bit more clever than Hornby because, as far as I can tell, the motors that they use most of the time are their own design, or at the very least I've never been able to find a suitable alternative online, on eBay, AliExpress, any of those cheap sites. And this is bad because it means when a Bachmann locomotive motor fails, you have to go to Bachmann and buy an official part. And this is a problem because they are very expensive. Here's one for £17, and a lot of these are only 3-pole motors. I've never been too impressed with the quality of them, and in my collection there are a good handful of locos with these motors that are on the blink or have failed completely. But what choice have you got, really? You either pay the money and fix your loco, or you don't pay the money and you end up with an expensive display piece. And ever since I made that video about replacing Hornby motors with cheap eBay ones, I have been asked again and again, time and again by you guys, have you been able to find a suitable motor replacement for Bachmann locomotives? And unfortunately, the answer has always been no. Until today, when the answer will be yes. This is a tiny little coreless motor. It costs £3.50, and I propose that this can be used in most of Bachmann's steam locomotives. Now, you might be looking at this and thinking, hang on, this is a tiny, ridiculous little motor that is never ever going to replace this. I mean, they're totally different sizes. It's not going to fit, is it? Well, I've come up with a solution for that. I have come up with this adapter in SketchUp. This is going to be 3D printed, and when I've tested it and confirmed that it actually works all right, I am going to make the files public domain. I'm going to make them free for you to download and alter if you want to, or use or produce yourself. You can do whatever you like with it once it's been sort of developed and finalized. I'm not sure how I'm going to share the files yet, but check the description by the time this video goes out. Hopefully I will have figured it out. So that part is currently printing behind me on my Mingda machine, and I'm hoping by the time I've finished waffling on here it will be ready to try. Behind me on the other side I've got a locomotive that is completely dead. That is my Bachmann Patriot. The motor has been on the blink for years, ever since I bought it, and it gave up the ghost some months ago. So I'm going to try to put a cheap coreless motor into there and we'll see how it runs. Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, so I'm going to pull this part off the build plate now. So like I say, this part you can download it and you can print it on your own 3D printer. If you haven't got a 3D printer, obviously it's not quite as convenient, but there are companies out there which allow you to upload files to their websites or whatever, and they will produce the part for you. It is quite expensive, unfortunately, but not as expensive as buying your own 3D printer. Although, given the way the hobby's going these days, I would recommend buying a 3D printer anyway, because you can save a lot of money by producing your own parts. This really is just the tip of the iceberg. So here we have the adapter in the flesh. As you can see, a little bit messy. I've got to remove some of the supports and file off some of the excess material. But once that is done, we will be able to try this. I'll be able to put a motor into it and see if it actually substitutes the original motor on the Bachmann chassis. Okay, a few things you're going to need then, and also some information on the things I've already showed you. So these motors come in all sorts of different sorts. This is an 1800 RPM motor, but they also do a 13,500 RPM version, which will be a bit slower and a bit more what we want, but this is the 1800 one. In terms of the dimensions of this, I'll just let you know what that is. So the motor diameter is 8mm, 8.1 this is coming in at, and the length of the motor is 16 6.8, so almost you can call it 17 millimeters, and they have a 1 millimeter diameter shaft. And for that shaft, you're going to want some worm drives, of course, because the original Bachmann shaft is much wider than that. I think it might be a 2 mil. So these are very inexpensive. They are not quality gears by any means, but I don't see any reason why they shouldn't last a reasonable amount of time. And of course, they're so cheap, you can buy loads of them. So they are modulus 0.5, I believe that's what you need. And the dimensions of these are diameter, about 6 mil. And the length is also 6 mil, so that's quite an easy one to remember. So first things first, let's take a look at putting the motor inside the bracket. Now, I could only find this motor with dual shafts, a shaft coming out the front and the back. It's not a huge deal if if it doesn't fit, if the body of the loco doesn't fit with the back shaft on, I'll have to cut it off. But hopefully this motor will fit into the adapter that I've made, like so. And then there is also a lid for the motor, which obviously holds it in place. And I've designed this so that it doesn't use any screws, so you should just be able to pop it on like so. But obviously, first things first, we're going to want to put a worm drive onto this motor, so let's do that first. So obviously it's much easier to push these worm drives on a little bit further than it is to reduce them and pull them back a bit. So I would recommend not putting the worm drive on all the way. And if it's not on far enough, you can add a little bit more to it in a second once you've tried it. So I'm going to put this worm drive on. You want to do this flat. Now it goes. I'm going to go a tiny bit further. There you go. Worm drive attached. Now let's open that loco up. Ah, there it is, the little offender. So that is the motor that is going to be removed and then possibly crushed in the vise afterwards, depending on how angry I feel towards it. Alright, let's make some progress in getting the little blighter out then. So I'm going to remove the DCC socket. I'm going to remove the worm drive cover, keeping the screw intact for that. And then I am going to pull out the old motor. It's a bit awkward to do this sometimes, but it's not too bad. All right, there we go. Not normally that rough with them, but it doesn't really matter this time. I think I've even managed to pull one of the wires off, which is cool. And then I'm going to take out the old motor adapter, which is, in this case, screwed in with 2 screws. Anyway, once that is out, we have this little adapter. And actually, we do need this adapter because it holds the rest of the locomotive's gear train. But in order to make our new coreless motor adapter fit onto this, we are going to have to butcher it a little bit. So I apologise for this in advance, but here we go. Just as a little warning, you might find that you enjoy this more than you should. Here we go. Ah. And again. Oh, right. Okay, well, I've brutalised it. Yeah, I just went to town with the snips, snipped off all the superfluous material and enjoyed it thoroughly. So now, hopefully, the adapter will fit over the holes in the bottom of the old adapter with a nice satisfying snap like that. There we go. And even more satisfying, hopefully, we'll be putting this coreless motor in and inevitably learn that it's at the wrong height. So yeah, so this adapter actually needs to be changed a little bit so that it sits a little bit higher up. So on the next design I will do that, but for now I'll just put something under the existing one so that hopefully we'll be able to try it. So let's do that. So I've solved the problem here by just inserting 3 of these 0.7 mil washers between my adapter and the old adapter and then screwing it into place. Obviously the best solution would be just to extend my adapter by like just a hair over 2 millimeters, which of course you're free to do, and I will also do that so that you can download a version for this loco. Alright, so I actually designed this motor mount for the standard 5, I think it was, and the fact that this does not fit into the Patriot tells me that they do have different mounts for different locos, so I'm going to have to create a taller version of this. By the way, I'm using this set of laptop repair screws, and all of my projects are going to use these screws, and I've got more free models coming on the way pretty soon. So if you're interested in getting some of those, then I will link these screws down in the description so you can pick some up if you want. Okay, so now it's in. It does take a little bit of fettling, I won't lie, it's not just a straight swap. But as you can see, when I turn the worm drive, the rest of the gears now turn. You can just about see that. So what I will do is I will wire it up in just a second. Now I'll put the old motor wires onto the new motor, and then this cap will go over the top like that, and that will stop the motor from leaving its new house. And then we'll put it onto the track and we'll give it a try. Okay, so here is the finished article. This is what it looks like with everything on board and the wires soldered up. But I think we need to hold our horses on that because we still don't know whether this thing works. So I think I've managed to get the gears to mesh correctly. You don't want them to be sort of rammed together. You want there to be a little bit of a gap, but they need to mesh fairly well. So let's have a go. Okay, so it works. Don't forget this is one of the higher RPM motors, so we can obviously get a bit more torque, I think, if we use one of the 13,000 RPM ones. Got some of those in the back, so we'll try that in a bit maybe. Yeah, this one does look a bit speedy, to be fair, but it's working perfectly well. And don't forget, folks, this was a dead locomotive, and now it's alive. Look at that, it's actually really smooth. My God. And just on my theory that cordless motors are faster than normal motors, let's go at 50% speed. Yeah, I wouldn't say this is too much faster, you know. Wouldn't say it's much faster, but yeah, faster, I would say. Right, now it's not been run in, obviously the loco has been run in, but the motor has not. So what I'm going to do is give it a little bit of lubricant. I'm going to just very lightly lubricate the motor, a little bit on the worm drive, and then we'll try a crawl. Okay, let's try a crawl. Oh. Okay. So it's all right. I mean, for a £3.50 motor, it's okay. But I would say this is not better than the original Bachmann motor. I mean, it's better than the original Bachmann motor in mine because it was fried. But this motor is not performing better than the original 3-pole. Not really. It's not far away. And at the higher speeds, it's perfectly good. I mean, that's all right. But with this motor at least, maybe the 13,000 RPM one will be different. But with this one, it's not worth doing this with a working Bachmann motor for some sort of improvement. But for this damaged loco, it was absolutely worth it. Let's put the body on, just to make sure it works like that. Okay, body back on, tender connected again. Let's try this. I am so pleased that this seems to work. Oh yeah. It's quite impressive, that tiny little motor. It's quite impressive that it can actually run a loco like this, isn't it? Not bad at all. And there's some power there, believe me, watch. Whoa. So really, I suppose if you wanted to go the whole hog, you could redesign the Bachmann adapter as well, and even print some better gears for it to slow it down, gear it down a little bit. But that is perfectly smooth. I am happy with that. For £3.50 plus a little bit of 3D printer filament, that is fine. That is excellent. Right, I'm going to try this on another loco, my standard 5 from Bachmann, also fried. Let's get that done. Right, so I've put in one of the 13,000 RPM motors into this loco, and let's take a look. Well, let's look at it at 50% first. Is it noticeably slower? Yes, a little. Right, so I think that's even closer to what the original Bachmann motor will have been. Let's try crawl. I'll be interested to see if this is better. Whoop. Yes. Already that is better. And it's not, doesn't seem to be cogging, does it? Weirdly. It is stalling a little bit. But that is great. I would say that is pretty close to what the original Bachmann motor would have been. I've seen Bachmann locos with that motor that run worse than that. A bit more. Right. That is very exciting. Okay. I'm going to try this on one more loco. So I want to try a side-by-side comparison so that we can observe exactly what difference the super cheap £3.50 motor makes. So I've got the ROD, the Robinson 04 I think it is, and inside we have the Bachmann motor. Is this a 3 or a 5 pole? 1, 2, 3. That's a 3-pole motor. So body on, let's just see how that runs. As far as I'm aware, this motor is not currently faulty. But it is not on the track correctly. Try again. Still doesn't sound like it's on the track correctly. But anyway, so that's how it's running. This is 50%. It seems very slow. And let's try a crawl. Like I say, this motor could be on the blink for all I know. That did seem a bit slow. But here's the crawl. Okay, so what can we notice? It's slow, but it is cogging a little bit. It's jerking forwards. But overall, that's a very good crawl. So I'm going to try and put one of my 13,000 RPM cordless motors in there. And let's see if it gets worse. If it's much worse, then I can only recommend doing this to replace a damaged motor. If it's better than this or the same as this, then it might even be worth just doing this for the hell of it, if you fancy it a project. But not necessarily something I'd recommend. Right, I won't do it on camera because you've seen the process. I'll get on with it and I'll be back. Okay, job done. So this adapter was the same as the Patriot. It needed just a couple of washers putting underneath it, 0.7mm washers they were. So again, I need to extend the adapter for models that have this motor cradle. But, here we go, it is going. And I guess I ought to put the body on, didn't I, in order to do the proper crawl test, so bear with me. Okay, I've put the body screws on as well then, just so that it's all together nicely. Right. I'm doing the crawl, and I would say that that is still not as good as the original motor. So you're not going to want to do this upgrade, well, downgrade, if the motor is in perfectly good shape. This is only going to be any use to you if the old motor is dead. But if the motor does die and you have to do this, that's not bad, is it? That is definitely not bad. And at the higher speeds, it's absolutely fine. That looks just as good as it used to. And of course, this motor has not yet been running. It's still a brand new motor, so maybe it will run in and get smoother, but rarely much, much smoother than when they're new. Really trying to do it. That's about as slow as it will maintain. A bit more. Whoa. Yeah, so it's a cheap motor, and I think that shows in the performance. As you can see, it does stop every now and again. So not great torque. Try it, you know, if you want to try it, see if you can find a better motor. I suppose if you pay a little bit more, you might get a better motor, but that's not always guaranteed, so do be careful. I wouldn't, well, if you pay more than £17, you might as well get the original Bachmann motor and save yourself the trouble. But I've now done £51 worth of motor repairs for just over a tenner, £10.50. So I am pretty happy. Only thing left to do is to hook up these locos with some rolling stock and see how they haul now. So there you have it. Patriot alive and well yet again. That's awesome. And experiment, you know, take my design. If you want to try and improve it, go for it. It does take a little bit of time to sort of fettle the adapter into the right position and get the gear to mesh perfectly, but 20 minutes or so, and you can easily do it. So I'm happy with that. I've got a couple of dead locos back from the grave, which is fantastic as far as I'm concerned. And moving forward, I know that there is now a way to replace a Bachmann motor without having to pay £17. I suppose there are worse ways to waste money, but this is just a small little project that hopefully will save you a little bit of money now and then, should you ever need to replace a motor. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. Comment down below and let me know what you thought, and I'll see you very soon. Alright, cheers everybody.